Germany is one of the richest countries on Earth. Strong economy, modern infrastructure, extensive social systems. And yet, for many people, everyday life is defined by uncertainty, by rising costs, limited margins, and the feeling of barely keeping up. When we talk about wealth, we often mix different things together: income, prices, living standards, and personal security. But being wealthy doesn't simply mean earning more money. It means having real purchasing power, enough to cover your basic needs and still have room to breathe. Over the past decades, incomes in Germany have increased, at least on paper, but the cost of living has risen much faster, especially housing and energy, the expenses people cannot avoid. And when rent and energy costs explode, cheaper televisions or smartphones don't make people feel wealthier. They simply need more money to afford the same standard of living. Germany is one of the largest economies in the world. Measured by total economic output, it ranks among the top global players. That means the country produces an enormous amount of value overall. But GDP measures size, not how that value is distributed, and not how much of it actually reaches households. Germany is clearly a wealthy country when measured by overall economic output. But when we look at how that wealth is distributed, a very different picture emerges. In Germany, the richest 10% of households hold around 60% of all net wealth. At the same time, the bottom half of the population owns only a very small share, roughly 3%. This means that a large part of the country's wealth is concentrated among a relatively small group, while most households have little financial buffer or long-term security. So even in a wealthy country, the experience of wealth is far from universal. For many people, economic prosperity exists mainly on a national level, not in everyday life. In Germany, the average household appears wealthy by statistical measures, more than 300,000 euros in net wealth. But the median household, which represents the household right in the middle of the distribution, has only about 106,000 euros of net wealth. This gap between median and average shows why many people don't feel wealthy, even in a wealthy country. Financial security is often discussed in terms of wealth, assets, or income. But for most households, security is something much more concrete. It's about having a buffer, the ability to absorb a shock when income suddenly drops or expenses rise. In Germany, around 1 in 5 households has no financial buffer at all, and nearly half would struggle to cover more than a few months without regular income. That means financial pressure doesn't require a major crisis. A job interruption, an unexpected bill, or higher energy costs can be enough. This is why rising fixed costs don't feel like abstract economic trends. They feel like immediate risk, because there is little room to adapt when margins are already tight. We've already seen that incomes in Germany have not kept pace with rising living costs, and housing costs, in particular, have increased much faster than wages. What makes this especially important is the nature of these expenses. Rent, energy, and basic utilities are fixed costs. They are not optional, and they can't easily be reduced. When these costs rise, households don't adapt by changing their lifestyle. They adapt by cutting security, savings, buffers, and flexibility. This is why higher living costs feel so different from general inflation, and why cheaper consumer goods don't offset rising rents or energy bills. Because when fixed costs grow, the margin for everyday life disappears. When margins are this tight, everyday life changes. Households don't just spend differently, they think differently. Saving becomes harder, planning becomes shorter term, and even small financial risks start to feel significant. This isn't about lifestyle choices, it's about limited room to adapt when costs keep rising. Wealth is often measured in averages and totals, but people experience wealth through stability and security. When large parts of income are tied up in fixed costs and financial buffers are thin, the feeling of wealth disappears, even if the country itself is objectively rich. That's the gap between national wealth and personal experience. Being told that others have less doesn't reduce financial pressure. Perception is shaped locally by rent, bills, and income. People don't compare themselves to global averages. They compare themselves to their own cost of living. That's why feeling wealthy depends less on statistics and more on everyday stability. Germany is a wealthy country. The economy is large, but wealth is unevenly distributed. Living costs are high and rising, and for many households, financial buffers are limited. Together, these factors shape something much more important than statistics. They shape everyday security. And when security is fragile, wealth exists, but it doesn't feel like wealth.